The elevator door slid open to the courthouse hallway. And there he was, tie crooked, wrists cuffed, eyes searching for a version of me that no longer existed. He mouthed, "You set me up." I didn't blink. "No," I said softly. I finally set myself free. The bailiff turned him away. The door sighed shut. And that's not where this story starts. It's where it almost ended. 12 weeks earlier. The restaurant was noisy with Friday night laughter when my phone lit up with a message that sliced straight through the sound. "I'm moving out. Papers are coming. Don't make this harder than it has to be." No explanation, no courage. Just a sentence like a receipt he didn't plan to keep. My name is Maya Lawson. 34. I live in a narrow blue townhouse under a line of old maples in Seattle. The front steps creak. The kitchen smells like citrus and cedar oil because I wipe the counters when I'm anxious. On the fridge, a Polaroid of two people under fireworks who thought the bright part would last forever. I used to say, if the numbers add up, we're fine. I believe spreadsheets could hold a marriage together. Adrian, my husband, was the kind of charming that borrowed light from any room. Architect, warm hands, easy laugh. We met over noodles at midnight, married under autumn leaves, and filled drawers with ticket stubs in case we ever forgot how it felt to begin. Somewhere, the drawer got heavy. Little things first, the gym bag that never smelled like sweat. The second phone for work. Trips that multiplied like fruit flies on the calendar. He started speaking in future tense without me in it. And I started saving texts, receipts, moments, without knowing why. Here's what I won't tell you yet. What was in the manila folder I slid across the table the night he tried to take everything. The clause he forgot existed. The signature he thought would never surface again. But I will tell you this. The day the message came, I didn't cry. I counted. Then I opened a box on the top shelf of the hall closet and remembered who the house and the history belonged to. You want to know how a quiet woman with shaking hands dismantled a grand exit made of lies? Good. Walk with me back to the first crack in the glass, and don't look away when the light hits it. The first crack was so small I could have lived with it forever. A gym bag that never smelled like sweat. A second toothbrush still in its plastic sleeve, stashed behind the towels. A calendar that learned the word tentative. He began talking about cities the way some people talk about wine. Portland, Boise, Vancouver, rolling the names around his mouth, tasting the future. He said he was chasing a commission. I watched him chase his reflection. That night, after the message, I walked home under rain, the color of pavement, and let my key turn slowly in the lock. Inside, the townhouse felt too neat, like a hotel had borrowed our life. The Eames chair by the window, the thrift store rug with the small coffee stain shaped like a comma, the bowl of clementines I bought because I like how a good citrus peel perfumes a room. It all waited for me to decide what it meant. I made tea I didn't drink, then went to the hall closet and pulled down the box labeled papers. The word looked too simple for what it held. Birth certificates, warranties, a marriage license with our names in black letters that still felt like strangers, and the prenup we had signed on a windy afternoon when the notary's stamp smeared because the page shivered. He'd said, "It's just smart, Maya. Two people agree on peace while they're still kind." He'd cupped my face like a blessing, and I'd wanted to believe nothing heavy hid in the fine print. I had read it. I read everything. But there was a clause he insisted on, and I didn't argue because we were in love, and my grandmother's voice in my head said, "Start clean." In the margin, in my own handwriting, I had circled a paragraph and underlined two words, fidelity clause. Not time limited, not decorative, binding. It is a strange thing to realize your future is tucked behind a paperclip. The next morning, I told no one. I went to work and made the sort of decisions that look small on spreadsheets and feel large in real life. I moved my direct deposit to the credit union 3 blocks from my office, the one with ferns in the window and tellers who wear sweater vests in July. I changed the password on my cloud backup and downloaded copies of everything with my name on it. I called the HOA and asked for a freeze on estoppels for our unit. The manager, a woman with a warm laugh, told me no certificate would leave her desk without my signature. I emailed our title company and asked them to add a note to our file. No transfer without in-person notarization by owner. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself I was just being careful. These are the same sentence said 2 different ways. On Thursday, I stood at our kitchen island and watched Adrian breeze in like the weather had followed him. He kissed the air over my cheek. "You're late," I said. There was a design review. Went long. He smiled the practiced smile that used to make me feel chosen. "Tonight, I need to sketch. Big presentation Monday. Think champagne if it lands." He always promised champagne to mark the thing that never quite arrived. "What firm is it with again?" I asked, rinsing a mug, my voice so calm I almost didn't recognize it. He rattled off a name that sounded like 3 surnames tied together with an ampersand. I typed it into my phone 5 minutes later and found a website that looked like it had been built in 2012 by a nephew. No staff page, no project list. The address led to a mailbox store that sells novelty stamps. By the time he showered, I had decided to stop being the kind of woman who waits for the floor to give way. I am not a spy. I am a person who started paying attention. I checked our joint email, the one we use for travel itineraries and holiday shipping. There were confirmation messages for a co-working space he'd rented by the day, a storage unit south of the stadium, 2 charges at a boutique hotel that bills itself as a creative refuge for modern minds. It has velvet headboards and rooftop yoga, and there was a pending request from an e-sign platform for a quitclaim deed. It was addressed to me, sent to an old alias email he hadn't realized still, forwards everything to my central inbox. The document sat there waiting for my click like a trap crouched under leaves. The request had been declined 3 times for identity mismatch. Attached was an audit trail that read like a confession. IP address, device ID, timestamps that lined up perfectly with the hours he claimed to be in review. It was as if the screen had spoken under oath. I forwarded the audit to my attorney with 1 line. "Do we need police or do we need popcorn?" Chloe called me back so fast I forgot to say hello. "First," she said, "do not sign anything. Second, thank you for being the kind of client who keeps receipts. Third, how are you really?" "Like someone who wore the wrong coat to a storm," I said. "Too thin? Too trusting?" She exhaled. "The prenup has the clause you circled. If we prove infidelity, you keep the house and your retirement. If we prove attempted fraud, we get more than a judge's raised eyebrow. How certain are you?" I told her about the hotel, the storage unit, the co-working space. I told her how my husband's gym bag smelled like expensive soap and nothing else. "Consider yourself certain," she said. "I can prep a petition and a motion for temporary orders. If you want the quiet version, we file ex parte, get you exclusive occupancy, and freeze the joint account to prevent a fire sale. If you want the loud version, we serve him at work with a photocopied audit trail and a bow." "He doesn't go to work," I said. "He goes to pretend. Quiet first," she said. "Loud later, if he insists." That night I stood at the doorway to the spare room, the one we called an office because it had a desk and a plant that didn't know it was dying, and watched Adrian draw. He looked the way he had the first time I loved him. Head bent, pencil moving, a line becoming a shape, becoming a building that might exist one day. Watching him work used to feel like prayer. Now the graphite on paper sounded like a zipper I couldn't unhear. "You've been distant," he said without looking up. "Is something wrong?" "You tell me," I said. He finally raised his eyes. "We're in a rough patch." "Every marriage hits one. We just need space to recalibrate." "Who is she?" I asked. He laughed, but it sounded like he'd forgotten how. "Don't do this." I didn't say another word. I turned off the light, went to bed, and waited for morning. I took Friday off. I went to the storage facility, the one with corrugated roll-up doors in a row like a grin. Our lease said Unit 217. I told the manager I needed to add my name to the account. She asked for ID and printed a form. While she processed the update, she chatted about her niece's wedding, about the baker who ghosted them. The printer clicked, and she slid me a copy. "Do you want me to cut the lock so you can replace it?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Please." The door rattled up. Inside, a stack of architects' models covered with sheets, a broken desk lamp, 2 crates of books, one medium moving box with an old wool blanket thrown on top, as if it were a person asleep. Under the blanket were women's clothes that weren't mine. A red cashmere sweater with a snag at the hem, a dress bag from a boutique that calls everything a capsule. In the box beneath, a small jewelry case. Inside the case, a necklace with a letter charm. S. S as in Sloan, the name that had shown up on a folio from the hotel when the clerk emailed a receipt to our joint account by mistake. I closed the case and the door and walked back to the manager's office with a lock in my hand that I didn't recognize as mine. By noon, the judge had signed the temporary orders. Exclusive occupancy to me. Freeze on the joint funds. A line that barred Adrian from transferring, encumbering, or attempting to convey any interest in the home without my consent. The language was so calm, it looked like it couldn't possibly change anything. It changed everything. He came home at 6, expecting either a fight or dinner. I gave him neither. "We need to talk," I said, handing him a copy of the orders. "The house is mine until this is resolved. The joint account is frozen. If you try to move money or property, you'll be dealing with a bailiff, not me." He read, mouth hardening, color draining. "What the hell is this? You tried to get me to sign a deed. You tried to change my payroll deposit. You rented a storage unit for your other life. You wanted me to be surprised. I'm not. I'm just done." He smiled the smile people wear when they've decided to be mean. "Honey, you don't have to do all this. We can be adults. Let's not ruin everything over a rough patch." "You did that for us," I said. "I'm cleaning up." He looked at the signature block. Chloe's name meant nothing to him. He has never noticed the names of the women who make the world work. He folded the order like it could be made smaller if he tried hard enough. "This will humiliate me," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "You should have thought of that when you picked a hotel with rooftop yoga." For 2 days he sulked in the spare room, packing exactly nothing. Proof a man can prepare for a life that never arrives. He left early Sunday, slamming the door like punctuation. The call came Monday morning while I was teaching my team how to untangle a budget no one had asked us to understand. An unfamiliar number. The co-working manager. Someone had been there using a conference room under our membership name, she said. He's left a folder. "Should I hold it?" "Hold it," I said, and wrote down an address. Inside the folder, a thin stack of forms printed from templates online. A draft listing agreement and photos of our townhouse pulled from a years-old rental post. And a checklist in his handwriting with boxes to tick. Quitclaim, estoppel, keys, staging. The boxes were empty. He had always loved a checklist more than the work. By Wednesday, Chloe had petitions ready and a process server booked, a tiny woman with a neat bun whose shoes looked built to outrun trouble. "Serve him where?" Chloe asked. "Where he pretends he belongs," I said. We picked the boutique hotel. He was in the lobby with Sloane when the server approached him with a neutral smile that has broken hearts in 3 counties. "Adrian Carter?" she asked. He nodded and took the packet the way people take a menu, as if they might refold choices later. Sloane's hand drifted to his sleeve. The server said, "You're served," and left them standing there under the chandelier, 2 people who'd studied the light and missed the wiring. He was waiting when I got home, eyes bright like he'd decided the story wasn't over. "This is insane," he said. "You're weaponizing paperwork." "You tried to weaponize my name," I said. "Paper cuts go both ways." He took a step toward me and stopped, as if the floor had moved. "We can fix this," he said. "Couples do." It was never about Sloane. It was about pressure, the house, expectations. You made it so hard to breathe. I looked past him to the door. It stood open, letting the smell of rain and cedar in. "I will not be the woman who apologizes for breathing," I said. He slept on the couch that night with the discipline of a man rehearsing homelessness. In the morning, he packed a duffel and left with the defeated grace of someone who still believes grace is owed to him. The preliminary hearing was a week later. A small courtroom with wood that had seen too much, a judge whose hair didn't move even when voices did. Chloe laid out the story like stones across a river: prenup, clause, hotel, storage unit, e-sign audit, the attempted account reroute, the quiet steps I took before the loud ones. Adrian's lawyer, one of those men who calls women ladies to keep himself calm, argued it was all marital miscommunication. The judge adjusted her glasses and said, "Miscommunication does not explain a forged identity." The pen in her hand was still, and somehow that felt like the loudest thing in the room. She kept the orders in place, added a prohibition against harassment or intimidation, and set a date for discovery. On the way out, in the hallway with the vending machine humming and the elevator door sighing, he said softly, "Can we talk?" I kept walking until the doors closed and the car moved me away. What I remember next isn't drama. It's the kind of ordinary that feels like a miracle after you haven't had it. I slept through the night without waking to his key in the lock. I ate toast over the sink and left crumbs without apologizing to myself. I made a list with 2 columns: things that hurt, things I want. The second column filled faster. Did I cry? Yes. Once in the cereal aisle, when a woman told her toddler to put the box back, and the child said, "But I want what I want," and the woman answered, "So do I." Once in the shower where the sound hides almost anything. Once when Lauren showed up with Thai food and put the cartons down and took my face in her hands like she was reminding me we share a species. "He's going to try something," she said. "He doesn't know how to let a story end if he isn't center frame." Chloe called 2 days later to tell me there was an attempted pull on a new line of credit using the marriage certificate and a fake pay stub for me. The lender's fraud team flagged it because the e-sign audit had been on a watch list since I'd sent it. A detective from the Financial Crimes Unit asked for a statement. I gave it, feeling my voice steady where it would have shaken a month ago. This is what happens when you stop convincing yourself your pain is an overreaction. You become credible to yourself, and that is contagious. He tried to posture next. He posted photos with Sloane on a deck that faced a lake, a caption about building a life with someone who understands. The comments were all sunshine and heart emojis until one of his friends, a man I'd always liked because he never wanted anything from anyone but a good story, commented, "Congrats on landing a gig at the co-working space. Champ." The post disappeared in an hour. The internet is a bully if you let it be. It is also a mirror. Sloane emailed me, of all things. She said she hadn't known he was married. If that was a lie, it was one meant to soothe herself, not me. She said she would leave him if I asked. The generosity of that assumption took my breath away. You mistake me, I wrote back. You can leave him because you want a life that doesn't require collateral damage. Or you can stay because you think the fireworks never end. My wanting anything has nothing to do with your part in this. She didn't reply. 2 days later, her Instagram was back to latte art and sunsets, with captions about self-care. Discovery was slow, the way anything is when it involves paper and people who've learned how to hide in it. But it worked. The hotel receipts, the storage lease, the messages to a staging company asking about dates, the cowed email from him to the co-working space apologizing for leaving the folder, asking if it could be shredded. And then, my favorite, the e-sign audit in a tidy PDF with the word failed turned into a paragraph that sounded like a verdict. When he realized paperwork wasn't on his side, he tried the stage. He told mutual friends I'd frozen him out, that I'd always been cold. He said I was vindictive, as if the word were a personality type instead of a reaction. Our neighbor, a retired teacher who has never been afraid of a conversation, knocked on my door and asked if what she'd heard was true. I told her the smallest piece with the biggest truth. He wanted a faster life and tried to take mine to pay for it. She nodded, eyes kind in a way that made me want to sit on the stoop and talk about tomatoes and pensions and the weather. The day before the final hearing, Chloe slid a new paper across my table. It was a settlement offer from his side that read like someone had thrown words at a wall and hoped law would stick. It asked for half my retirement and an equalization payment for loss of earning potential due to wife's controlling nature. "Do you want me to frame it or burn it?" she asked. "It's evidence," I said, "of a man who thinks adjectives are assets." We rejected it with 3 sentences and a citation. I didn't sleep the night before. I lay on my back and watched light move across the ceiling. I counted what I still had and what I had learned how to live without. In the morning, I put on the blue dress I wear when I need to remember I am not a person who apologizes for taking up a chair. I ate toast. I checked the plant in the spare room and cut away the dead leaves. I locked the door and felt the click in my bones. The courtroom was cold enough to make your fingers ring. The judge reviewed the facts like weather, not personal, inevitable. She found the prenup enforceable as written and the fidelity clause triggered by evidence. She found the attempted transfer credible as intent and the e-sign audit persuasive as proof. I kept the house. I kept my retirement. He kept the debt he had acquired, trying to start a life with someone else while ending mine without a mark on his shoes. When we stood to leave, he turned toward me, tie crooked, wrist not yet cuffed but about to be, because the detective had filed charges for the forged signature attempt and the payroll reroute. He mouthed, "You set me up." "No," I said. I finally set myself free. They took him down the hall. The elevator swallowed the sound. After, life didn't turn into a montage. There were bills and emails with subject lines that made my stomach clench even when they were about nothing at all. There were evenings when the house sounded too quiet and I turned on the radio just to hear someone's voice ask how the traffic looked on the 5. There were small, ordinary mercies. The way the light fell on the banister at 4:30. The neighbor's cat deciding my stoop was part of its territory. The lemon tree I kept meaning to buy and finally did. Lauren came over with cupcakes that looked like they were wearing hats. She sat and listened and didn't tell me I was brave. She told me I was specific. "This is better," she said. "Brave is something people call you when they don't know what else to do with your choices." Specific is a way you get through the day. I went to the storage unit one more time. I didn't want his things, but I didn't want them to become someone else's problem. I opened boxes and found artifacts from a life we'd promised each other. A map of the San Juans with dots where we'd planned to go, a postcard he never sent me from a conference he never attended, a pair of hiking boots with tags still on. Under a blanket at the bottom, I found a notebook full of sketches that weren't buildings. They were faces, mine from earlier days. A woman at a bus stop with a coat too thin for the weather. A barista with hair piled high, balancing 3 cups. He had seen women everywhere and drawn them. He had not learned how to live with one. I left the notebook at the front desk with a note. Return to owner. The manager tucked it under the counter like a secret she meant to keep until it mattered. A month later, I sold the townhouse. My choice, my timeline. I slept on the floor the last night with a blanket and a mug of tea and said thank you to a room that had held me even when I couldn't hold myself. I bought a small house with a porch and a dented mailbox and painted the door a color that made delivery drivers smile. On a Saturday morning, I pulled weeds and thought about how strange it is to grow anything on purpose. A woman walking a greyhound stopped to say she liked the paint. We talked about nothing important, and then she said, I heard what happened. If you ever want company that doesn't ask questions, I walk this way every morning. I nodded. My throat felt full. Thank you, I said, and meant it. He called once from a number I didn't recognize. He said he was sorry in a voice that made me believe he meant he was tired. I didn't ask what for. I didn't need to be the person who granted forgiveness like a stamp on a form. I listened until he ran out of words, and then I said, I hope you learn something you can live with, he said. You sound different. I said, I am. I hung up and stood in my kitchen and looked at the counter I'd sanded myself. I thought about the clause I'd underlined months ago and how paper, if you respect it, will respect you back. I thought about the women on those sketches, all of them carrying coffee cups like commitments, all of them going somewhere. A community center asked me to speak on a panel about boundaries. I almost said no. Then I remembered the version of me who stood in the hallway with an audit trail in her hand and a calm voice on the phone, and decided I would rather be useful than quiet. What I told the room was simple. It wasn't about law or leverage. It was about listening to the math of your own life. When the numbers stop adding up, you don't need permission to check the work. When someone says you're overreacting, ask yourself who benefits if you stay underreacting. Preparation is not the opposite of love. It's love extended to the person you have to be when the worst thing happens. Afterward, a woman with a tired smile waited until everyone else had left. She said, He tells me I made the finances confusing. Is that a sentence you've heard? I said, yes. Then I wrote down the name of my credit union and told her the teller in the navy vest loves to help. At home, the porch light clicked on like a promise nobody had to remember to keep. If you want the kind of ending that ties with a bow, I can tell you that the court's final orders arrived with the mail and smelled faintly of ink. I kept the life I built. He kept the consequences he earned. Sloane posted a photo of a dog she adopted, and her captions got more interesting, which I choose to take as proof people can learn. If you want a different ending, the one I chose for myself looks like this. Sundays with lemon bars cooling on the counter and the radio telling me about a storm 2 states away. A map on the wall with new dots. A doorbell that rings with people who say, I was in the neighborhood. The knowledge that my voice sounds like mine again. Sometimes the thing you think will break you turns out to be the exact weight you needed to grow muscle. Sometimes a signature you didn't write becomes the line you draw and mean. Sometimes the The story starts at an elevator with a man in a crooked tie and ends on a porch with a cup of tea. There is one piece I'll keep for myself. A letter arrived a few weeks after everything quieted, a small plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a key on a blue tag and a note with 4 words. There's more. Unit 217. I went. I opened the door. I stood inside that corrugated room and decided what I did not want to carry anymore. I left the key on the manager's desk and walked out into the gray afternoon, feeling lighter than a person should be allowed to feel on an ordinary day. Adrian once told me over the phone that I should figure out where I was going to live. I did. And I like it here.
Moral of the story: consent and boundaries matter, but they are not shields for deception. Love without honesty is only a performance, and a promise without transparency is just a script. When your gut whispers that something is wrong, listen. Intuition is information. Do not gaslight yourself to keep the peace. Preparation is self-respect. Know your documents, protect your accounts, keep records, and ask hard questions. Dignity is not loud. Sometimes justice is calm, methodical, and legal. Revenge doesn't need rage to be complete. It can be choosing the truth, trusting the process, and walking away with your integrity intact. Real partnership is mutual. Mutual care, mutual intimacy, mutual accountability. Secrets starve closeness. Manipulation kills it. If someone weaponizes language to avoid responsibility, believe their actions, not their slogans. You are not defined by another person's betrayal. You are defined by the choices you make after it. Choose clarity over chaos. Choose boundaries over begging. Choose the version of yourself that stands up, stands firm, and steps forward. Thank you for staying with us. If you enjoyed this story, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell icon. And most importantly, don't fight.